and make sure to engage in comments and share this video to your friends and story lovers, and click on the subscribe button on the screen to subscribe to Inquisco for more real and true stories like this. I should have walked away the second I felt the pull toward him. It was reckless, stupid, dangerous, but in the moment, I convinced myself it was harmless. A drink, a conversation, nothing more. But that was a lie. It started on a Friday night, one of those nights where everything felt off. My husband, Daniel, had left early for a business trip, and the house felt too quiet, too empty. So when my best friend bailed on our dinner plans last minute, I found myself alone in a dimly lit bar, sipping a cocktail, pretending like I belonged there. And then I saw him, Ethan. Tall, dark, and just the right amount of dangerous. He caught me looking, and instead of looking away, I held his gaze. It was like stepping too close to the edge of a cliff. You know you should back away, but something makes you lean forward instead. He came over, introduced himself, and before I knew it, we were talking and laughing. He was charming in a way Daniel hadn't been in years, attentive. He looked at me like I was the only person in the room. I told myself it was nothing, that I was just enjoying the attention. But then came the second drink, the third. The way his fingers brushed mine when he handed me a napkin, the heat in his gaze that made my breath hitch. "Tell me, you don't want this," he murmured, his voice low and smooth. I should have. I should have grabbed my purse, walked out, and never looked back. But instead, I let him pull me into a cab. The whole night was a blur of bad decisions, of whispered promises I never should have made. And when I woke up tangled in sheets that weren't mine, reality crashed down so hard it stole my breath. I left before he woke up, blocked his number, deleted every trace of him. It was a mistake, a single night I would bury and never speak of again. Or so I thought, because 2 nights later I got a text from him. "You left too soon. We should talk." I ignored it. Another text, then another, and then the video, a short clip, the dark room, me, him. My stomach dropped. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped my phone. Then another message. "I think we both know you don't want me to share this." My world tilted. I felt sick. He wasn't just some random guy I could forget. He wasn't letting me go. I stared at my phone, my breath shallow, my heartbeat hammering so hard it felt like it might crack my ribs. The video played on a loop in my mind. The dim lighting, the way his hands were on me, the way I didn't push him away. I wanted to scream. How? How had he recorded it? When? I had been so careful, hadn't I? A new message. "You don't want your husband to see this, do you?" My vision blurred with panic. I gripped my phone so tightly my fingers went numb. This couldn't be happening. I swallowed hard, forcing my shaking fingers to type. "What do you want?" The 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. I held my breath. Then, "Let's meet. Tonight. Same bar." I squeezed my eyes shut. No, 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 no. This was insane. He was blackmailing me. But what choice did I have? If Daniel saw that video, if anyone saw it, my life would be over. So I did the only thing I could. I went. The bar looked different this time, darker, colder. Or maybe it was just me. I spotted Ethan immediately. He was sitting in the same seat, his fingers lazily wrapped around a glass of whiskey. He looked up, and when his eyes met mine, he smiled. I wanted to slap that smug expression right off his face. Instead, I slid into the seat across from him, my entire body coiled with tension. "You're insane," I whispered harshly. Ethan chuckled, taking a slow sip of his drink. "I've been called worse." I gritted my teeth. "Delete the video." He leaned back in his chair, eyes glinting with something unreadable. "That's not how this works, sweetheart." A cold chill ran down my spine. "What do you want?" I asked again, my voice barely above a whisper. Ethan tilted his head, studying me like I was some kind of puzzle he was enjoying putting together. "I want to see you again," he said simply. I stared at him. "Are you serious?" His smirk widened. "Very." I shook my head. "You're out of your mind," he shrugged. "Maybe, but you don't have much of a choice, do you?" I clenched my fists under the table. "If you think you can control me, you're wrong." His smile didn't falter. "I don't need to control you, Olivia. I just need you to cooperate." I felt like the walls were closing in. If I said no, would he send the video to Daniel? Would he leak it online? I had no way of knowing just how far he was willing to go, but something told me he'd go as far as he needed to. Ethan leaned forward, his voice dropping lower. "Tomorrow night, my place, 7 o'clock. Wear something nice." I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. "And if I don't?" He smiled, slowly, dangerously. "Then your husband gets a little surprise in his inbox." My stomach twisted into knots. I was trapped. I wanted to grab my drink and throw it in his face. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. Not here. Not in front of all these people. Ethan stood up, tossing a few bills onto the table. Then he leaned in, his lips barely brushing my ear, as he whispered, "See you tomorrow, sweetheart." And then he was gone. I sat there, frozen. I had just made the worst mistake of my life, and now it was only getting started. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, my hands gripping the bathroom sink so tightly my knuckles turned white. My stomach churned. 7 o'clock. That was less than an hour away. Ethan expected me to show up, and if I didn't? I closed my eyes, the image of Daniel, my husband, flashing in my mind, the way he smiled at me when he came home from work, the way he pulled me close at night, completely unaware that I was hiding the biggest betrayal of our marriage. If Ethan sent him the video, if he even got a hint of what I had done, I shuddered. I couldn't let that happen. My phone buzzed on the counter. I flinched. Ethan. "Don't be late, sweetheart." I swallowed hard. I had to go. I had to fix this before it spiraled even further out of control. So, against every instinct screaming at me to run, I got dressed, grabbed my car keys, and drove straight into the nightmare waiting for me. Ethan lived in a sleek, high-rise apartment downtown, the kind of place with floor-to-ceiling windows and expensive furniture that looked like it had never actually been used. My heels clicked against the hardwood floor as I stepped inside. The door shut behind me with a quiet final click. Ethan leaned against the kitchen counter, sipping a glass of red wine. He looked me over, his eyes lingering just long enough to make my skin crawl. "You look stunning," he said, his voice smooth as silk. I crossed my arms. "I'm here. Now delete the video." Ethan chuckled, shaking his head. "Oh, Olivia, you really don't understand how this works, do you?" I clenched my jaw. "You said you wanted to see me again. Fine. Here I am. But this is the last time. You'll delete everything, and we'll both move on with our lives." He studied me, swirling his wine glass absent-mindedly. "And what if I don't want to move on?" A cold chill ran down my spine. You don't have a choice, I snapped. Ethan smirked. I always have a choice. Something about the way he said it, so calm, so confident, made my skin prickle with unease. I took a slow step back, suddenly aware of how alone I was. Just me and him, and no one else knew I was here. Ethan set his wine glass down and stepped toward me. I instinctively moved back, but he caught my wrist. You don't get it, Olivia, he murmured. I don't just want another night with you. His grip tightened. I want control. My pulse spiked. Let go of me. His fingers flexed. Then finally, he released me. I exhaled shakily. You're insane. Ethan smiled. And you're trapped. I shook my head. No, you're not going to ruin my life. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. With a few swipes, the screen lit up, the video. Paused, ready to send with the press of a button. You sure about that? My blood ran cold. Think about it, sweetheart, he continued, voice dripping with amusement. One little click, and your husband's world shatters. Your world shatters. I couldn't breathe. I had no way out. Unless... I forced my face to relax, softened my posture just enough to look resigned. Ethan noticed. He smirked. Now you're starting to understand. I took a slow step forward. Fine, I whispered. But I need to know. Why me? Ethan's smirk faded slightly. He studied me, as if trying to decide if the question was genuine. I like breaking things, he murmured. And you? You were too perfect, too untouchable. He reached up, tucking a loose strand of hair behind my ear. I wanted to see what would happen when you finally fell. I swallowed down the bile rising in my throat. This man, he wasn't just a mistake. He was a predator, and I was his prey, but not anymore. My fingers tightened around the cool metal of the wine glass on the counter, and then I swung. The glass shattered against his temple. Ethan stumbled back, cursing, blood trickling down his face. His phone slipped from his fingers, landing on the floor. I lunged for it. His hand clamped onto my wrist mid-grab. You bitch! I twisted, kicking him hard in the stomach. He grunted, stumbling back again. My hand shot out. I grabbed his phone and bolted for the door. I nearly made it, but Ethan recovered faster than I expected. Fingers tangled in my hair. A sharp yank. Pain. I screamed as he dragged me back, slamming me against the wall. You think you can play games with me? His voice was low, furious. I clawed at his arm, but his grip was like iron. I had one shot. I swung my knee up hard. Ethan doubled over, groaning. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed his phone and ran. Through the living room, down the hall. My heart hammering so hard it felt like it might burst out of my chest. I threw open the door and I froze. Standing in the dim hallway, his face unreadable, was Daniel, my husband. His eyes flicked from me to Ethan's bleeding figure in the doorway, then down to the phone clutched in my trembling hands. His gaze darkened. Olivia, he said, voice terrifyingly calm. Start talking. And just like that, everything fell apart. Click on the subscribe button on the screen to subscribe to Inquisco for more real and true stories like this.